We are here in the AM Drive with Ken Boehlke of SinBin.vegas, coming to you with all things Vegas Golden Knight related, if you can't already tell by what's behind him on the shelves there. Ken, thank you so much for coming aboard.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, most definitely. I tell you what, last few days, after the hockey, season has ended, it's just hard to get enough of your fill. It's pretty much speculation time over the next couple of months, with the exception of expansion draft, which we're not obviously going to get every year. But I actually kind of wanted to know, with the expansion draft, I assume you watched it last night.
Oh, yeah.
What first and foremost, what were your thoughts on the ESPN coverage last night?
That was not very good. It's not
Yeah.
horribly surprising. It's the first time they had a chance to do something. And I mean, it's going to take them a minute just because this isn't some sort of channel that's new to sports or it's a big deal to ESPN that they're getting the NHL. It's not. Like, it's still going to be the fourth sport for them. It's not a huge deal. That was one of the good things that NBC had was, yes, they have other sports, and yes, they have football, but the hockey was kind of their thing. That was kind of one of their main things. And for ESPN, it's not. So you're going to get names wrong. You're going to get, situations where the mics don't work. And today was even worse, I thought, than yesterday, where they have a thing around the schedule release, and there was no mention of the schedule release for the first 15 minutes of SportsCenter. It's like, well, wait a minute. The press release said from the NHL said this is happening on SportsCenter. So I think we're kind of going to have to just kind of get used to that. It's not the main sport, and it's not going to be the main sport, and that's going to have to be fine with all us. It kind of sucks, but it is what it is.
Yeah, that's fair. I thought actually, I don't know the expense of it, but I thought actually like they could create a channel. ESPN2 is not highly used. It could have been their hockey thing. So,
right.
I was just a little disappointed.
There's a Longhorn network and ESPNU, and there's all these different things. Yeah, that would be great if there was an ESPN hockey channel. They don't have enough talent to do it at the moment, but down the road maybe.
Yeah, I thought they should just get Kevin Weeks carte blanche. I think anything's better than Chris Fowler at this point. That's not.
It was tough, yeah.
But so I guess the follow-up is: do you have faith in them to cover the NHL, or are you just praying Turner Sports doesn't blow it?
No, I think they'll be fine. As far as like what we need out of them, which a normal fan or more so, even more a diehard fan, like just show the games. Like I don't really care. Even if the mics don't work, I really don't care. I don't need someone telling me. I watch most games on mute, to be honest, anyway, because I don't want there to be any sort of opinion funneling in, which I've always kind of wondered how often I tweet exactly what they're saying, but whatever. So to me, as long as the game is on, it doesn't really make a huge difference. And I plan on being at a lot of them. So for the Golden Knights, it definitely doesn't make a difference.
That's fair. Yeah, I find myself just turning it down and watching the game myself. So I can respect that. So, all right, let's talk Seattle expansion draft here for a little bit before we get into the Golden Knights. Listening to your podcast will change my opinion on this, but this is one question I wrote earlier. Is I was a little underwhelmed by the lack of the big names. Price was available. Tarasenko was available. Ovechkin was available. We'll call it unprotected. But could you argue Jared McCann was the biggest name of the night? Mark Giordano maybe, but
yeah.
I was a little underwhelmed by the picks, as if this stays the current constructed roster.
I thought that there were options there for them to potentially take. Price obviously being the main one. Tarasenko kind of right behind him. There were some other. Max Domi was another one. I think there was like a pragmatic approach to it in this case, which is like, if the guy can play and he can really play up to his contract, we'll take him. That's where you saw the Yanni Gord come in. A couple of the defensemen were up along there. Drieger, I think, is kind of the same. Like, he can play at $3.5 million. If he was $7 million, they're probably not taking him. So
right.
I thought they kind of, in many ways, did what you probably should. I think a lot of us fans and media would kind of be swayed by some of those big names and try to take at least one where really don't necessarily need him, and then the flip is going to be challenging anyway, and you saw what the cost on Shane Gostisbehere was. So I don't know what the flip would be on a player who's a little bit better than him. It's hard to say, but I think the biggest almost letdown, and I don't really want to call it a letdown because I don't want Seattle to be good, and I don't really care if they're any good ever because they're in the Pacific Division, so I'm fine with them being awful forever. But I was stunned by some of the selections and there being no side deals connected to it. Like I cover hockey for a living. I spend it's got to be 80 hours plus a week in the regular season, maybe even more, covering these games, and they took 6 guys or 7 that I've never heard of. I have no idea who the guy is from Philly. And like, I have a friend who's a big Philly fan. He doesn't even know who he is, and he cheers for the team. Like, I don't know how they got out of there without a single option pick, something coming their way. The Golden Knights made 10 trades inside of the expansion draft. Seattle making 0 kind of stunned me. Their roster, I think, is fine. I don't think their roster is all that different than what the Golden Knights was right after the expansion draft. It's just they don't have the bushel of assets that Vegas had, and therefore they're not in the position to go buy a Mark Stone, Max Pacioretty. They don't have the Tuck and the Theodore coming with. You know, they're definitely short in that regard, but the team is okay. I actually think the team might be the 3rd or 4th best team in the division.
Yeah, well, that's a very low bar, to be fair. But regarding that guy in Philly, yeah, is the T silent in his name? I'm not even sure. I've never even heard of the guy myself.
There's letters that don't seem to go together, and obviously my name is that problem as well. But yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah, well, then my wife will feel a little better because I don't think she knew 24 out of the 30 picks.
Yeah,
she was sad to see Yanni Gourde go because of our Lightning affiliation here. But side deals, you mentioned that. I listened to your podcast, the most recent one, about maybe the side deals might happen afterwards. First question is do we expect to any of these players to be moved? You're shaking your head already. And
you'll see a few, but they didn't take the guys that you can move. Like, they have a rash of defensemen, and I think they'll ship a few of those out. But if you really look up and down their list, Mark Giordano is probably the most valuable piece they have. Maybe it's Yanni Gourde, McCann, Donskoy. I mean, they have some good options. They're hockey players that can play. Like, these guys are going to be able to play, but you don't have a first-round pick option in there. They do not have a single player that they can trade for a first-round pick today. So, yes, there will be deals. Yes, they must find a way to make some of these deals. But the only way they're generating any sort of legitimate draft capital, or even, capital that they can use with players now, which I think is a better idea because the division sucks so bad, you might as well try to win now, would be to take on some massive contracts, and they don't seem interested in that.
Yeah, I mean, that was my thing. You drafted 12 defensemen without really a notion of trying to flip one. Well, you're going to carry 7 max. So, stick 5 of these guys in the AHL. It didn't really make a lot of sense to me. So I am
go through waivers.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see, and maybe a team like Vegas can snatch one up if they need Alec Martinez a replacement. So we'll see about that. You mentioned something in the last podcast, and this one actually I thought would have been genius if Ron Francis did it. And maybe there's some sort of gentleman's code here, but making kind of those handshake deals with Alexiak, Drieger, and Larson, the 3 guys who kind of signed before we knew that they were going to be the picks. And maybe, like I said, maybe there's something not legal about that or not the morale.
Well, they said it's okay.
Why didn't they do it? You could have had like a Nola Chari in that spot, or you could have had, somebody from Dallas and somebody from Edmonton. Not that there's a lot in Edmonton that you really want other than the top 2, but, just having another player there that could have been available to trade and still having a Chris Drieger on Monday.
Right. I think the biggest thing was probably just there weren't enough players around them to want to grab them all. And like a Nola Chari would be an example of, I think it kind of reminds me of like investing. You ever buy stocks or I'm into NFTs now, or, trading cards or whatever. When you buy one and then you can't sell it, you end up stuck with it and you just hold it forever and hope that eventually one day it goes up. I think there was a fear of that, where it's like, we may take this player or this player, but then we're on the hook for that amount. If we sneak them through waivers, then we're sending NHL players down to our AHL team. That's not necessarily ideal. We don't want to be on the hook for some of these. Again, I think they took a very, very safe approach to this thing, and having a handshake deal and having the ability for now all of a sudden Carolina may need a goalie, and them swooping in and offering Chris Drieger $4 million, $4.5 million instead of the $3.5 million they got. Things can change the second that roster freeze lifts, and we're still 5-6 days away, whatever it is, the 28th, from free agency actually opening, more things are going to change before then. I think you could have probably gotten away with it. It just was the juice worth the squeeze. And is Nola Chari? I guess probably. I probably would have done it with one of them. But then again, all of them were there. Like weren't all three of the free agents at the draft?
They were,
So
yes.
in that respect, like you have to eventually start team building. I know that sounds stupid, but you have to start doing some of that and having some of them there. But again, I think I would have probably taken one. I would have taken the risk on one or two of them.
Yeah, I would say out of everything, the Giordano pick, I get the captain and having a face of the franchise. But like my wife in 2017, she was relatively new to hockey. She knew Fleury.
Yeah.
Like I got to imagine a fan like that. Who do they know on this team?
Yeah, they really don't. And then I guess part of that is I don't think they're in the same spot as Vegas in that I think Vegas was legitimately concerned that their fan base might not exist. They knew they had the season tickets. They knew that there was some buzz about the team, but I don't think it was to the point where they said, if we throw a garbage product out on the ice for 3 straight years, that this is going to be fine. Seattle has thrived with multiple teams. Their football team, their basketball team's gone, but their soccer team is ridiculously popular. Like, I don't think they had any concern that if the team is ever good, that they're going to be fine. So I don't think they were looking at, we need to sell jerseys or we need to have a name player, any of that. I think they just looked for what were the best options. And to be completely honest, like, I don't think they passed on too many good players. Like Jake Bean, okay, you might have passed on him. Other than these massive contract guys, I don't think they missed on too many. And in that respect, now you've got $30 million in cap space and you've got plenty of room to do some things. They just have to do it. And so far, they're not.
That's fair. I would, this is just purely opinion, I would take a different approach that I didn't think Vegas really needed to compete year one. And I thought their draft reflected that. Whereas now everybody's like, well, can you do what Vegas did? And I felt like there was an added pressure on Seattle to be that contender. And especially, like you said, the Pacific sucks. Well, with the exception of Vegas.
The Golden Knights did it on accident. Like
that's what I'm saying. I thought, they were afraid of having a franchise or a fan base. I thought they definitely didn't draft that way. Now, I think there were more bigger names here.
England, I don't, and again, like the draft picks, and they knew they were going to sell. I think they were, if there was any reason. But again, you look back, it's like they're giving you a second-round pick to take Marc-Andre Fleury. Like, whether you need a fan base or not, yeah, I'm in. Let's go. We'll take that. Like, I don't think that was an all that difficult move. And I guess I think they screwed up on the price. I think Francis screwed up on the price. Like, you can't just
giving the price out early like that. It's going to be a first and a third if you want it. Like,
you can't.
You need to have negotiating room. Yeah.
Right. You sit there and try to get a fourth. Pry a fifth out of somebody to take whoever the damn guy is from the Philly. I don't. Yeah. What's his name?
Tworinsky.
Yeah, that guy.
With the T silent, Warinsky? I don't know.
Like Justin Braun was available. They didn't have a lot of great players, but there was something. You got to be able to pull something out.
AVR was out there. He's a name. I mean, that's a family name right there, Van Riemsdyk.
But it's like, this is the one opportunity you have where you have the league by the nuts. Squeeze. They
didn't squeeze hard enough. Yeah. So wrap it up here. Just basically one word. Where do they? If the team is constructed as is, where do they finish in the Pacific next year?
6th. Might be 7th.
Yowzers. And the Pacific.
They're not going to be good. I think they're better than what I think a lot of people are looking at. Like, I don't think they're a 50-point team or something crazy. I don't think they're the worst team in the division. Somebody will be worse. I don't necessarily know who it is because there's too many candidates to come up with in the middle of July. But I don't think they're going to be terrible, but I don't think they're going to be good.
Well, let's hope my 79.5 stays under, because that's my ticket this year. So I think I'm safe. All right, let's flip over to the Golden Knights here. And I've been listening to the podcast lately to get prepared for this one. And I've listened to the last two. The second to last one, I've listened to it twice now. And then the most recent one, you've really kind of blown my mind on this. And I hope Vegas fans are listening, because I love you. I know you love to bring the hashtags of come playoff time, or something that culminates, the season in itself, for the cup with the four you are. I know we're kind of a family show here, but I think the new hashtag, based on your last podcast, should be "Fuck the Future." And it's just, I don't know if you guys have listened to it yet. The last podcast for SinBin is phenomenal. If you're a rah-rah fan and you don't care what happens and you're the ones on the jumbotron just ready to dance, you're not going to like this. But give them a brief synopsis of your ideology here and how you almost, and maybe you did, but how you almost convinced your coworker Jason to come to that side, the dark side of the force here.
The main concept here is the plan at the beginning was to make the playoffs in 3 and win the cup in 6. And obviously that timeline gets moved up pretty quickly when you're in the cup final in the first year. But deep down, it's like, well, if you told anybody you get the cup by year 6, that would be fantastic. So once you got to that point, it's like, okay, well, you can take your time and build the team out right. And I think they've done a lot of good things, and they've gone, big sea fishing, or whatever the term, I don't know what the big game hunting.
Big game hunting, yeah.
Whatever it is, I don't exactly know. But, they're put themselves in a position where they're close. And now I think you have to look at the roster and say, if we don't make a significant change in some way, we're probably going to run into the exact same problem again. And we just beat Colorado, and they're probably going to improve moving forward. They could be a problem. Obviously Tampa has won 2 in a row. There's some good teams over in the East. Carolina comes to mind. Florida might be better. I think it's time to kind of look at where the Golden Knights are and understand that you're going to have to take a shot at some point. They really haven't. Even the trades that they've made, the Tatar one was a pretty big shot, but they had a lot of money to make that happen. They had a lot of assets. Then they flipped it around and turned it into Pacioretty. And, a lot of these, they've really never gone all in and said, this is the one we're going to win it. By that, I mean way over the cap by spending big time at the deadline, taking every risk you can possibly take, whether that's in the deadline, the offseason, or whatever, and basically giving up a ton of your future assets. If Krebs isn't able to play this year, he should go. Brisson can go. The first-round picks can go. Korczak can go. Dorofeyev, Morozov. It doesn't matter because you have to win now. And I think the big part of it is like, Bill Foley is not a young man. Bill Foley got in this to win, and he's, getting older. And that's why he said year 6. I think the general manager needs to be told, you're going to get fired if you don't win in this year or the following year, because he and both of them, I would say more McPhee than McCrimmon. I don't know who controls what, but at some point they're going to have to be given somewhat of an ultimatum that's like, look, enough with the future, enough with setting us up down the road, enough with cost certainty. I'm done with all that. I need my name on the cup, and I want to lift the damn thing before I pass away. Let's make that happen. And to me, there can be no better time when Mark Stone is 28, 29, whatever he is. Petrangelo's still somewhat in his prime, 31, 32, somewhere in that ballpark. And then a bunch of guys behind him are between 25 and 28. You're in a really good spot to go all in right now. And there's very little behind him. If this time doesn't work, you're not going to be able to sell off all of these pieces to replenish behind them. You're going to have to do a pretty staunch rebuild, and you better have a cup by the time you're doing that rebuild. So I think the right move is going all in, and I think the right way to do it is holding a bit of cap throughout this offseason, whether that's trading a goalie or going a different route. Hold your cap now, get to the deadline with $5, $6, $7 million in cap, and buy $20 million of players using that amount of money, because it only costs a quarter of the price if you have been accruing cap space the entire way. The Golden Knights kind of went down that road in year 3, except that they decided to buy a goalie and create themselves their own controversy, and then they lost because of that.
Year after year, we're going to be talking about that and missed opportunities with $5 to $7 million. It's an error that they refuse to fix, really, unfortunately.
And then don't panic. Like, that's the other thing. That season, they created themselves a team that they knew was not as good as the team that they were going to go into the postseason with, because they had the ability to make some trades at the deadline. They were in cap, but then when they started losing, they panicked and changed their defensive system and then fired their head coach. Like, you can't do that. If that's the plan you're taking, you've got to stay along that plan. And that's one of the huge problems I have with this front office, is they just don't seem to have an idea. How are we getting from where we are now to etching our names in on the cup? I don't think they have a good idea of it. And 0 for 21, McPhee makes me believe that maybe he doesn't actually know what that final piece is. Hopefully McCrimmon can convince him of one.
Yeah, and going, culminating here, last question I have for you with that hashtag F the future. And, we have the 2017 draft, which all fans now kind of see as a whoopsie daisy. It didn't work. The ghost of McPhee's drafting past, other than Alex Ovechkin, has come back to haunt him. You talked about mortgaging the future, setting themselves up, giving them an ultimatum right here. The 2017 draft is gone in the first round. We've got a first round. Haig was a second round pick, if I'm correct.
Early for second overall pick in the second round. Yeah.
So you have Brandstrom, your latest first round pick, got your best piece back. And Suzuki got your second best, and Glass, your highest pick, got your worst asset back. So, what would you call the 2017 first round? A success or a failure, based on what they got and who they drafted?
It's somewhere in between.
Because the question is, with Cody Glass, if Cody Glass goes for Max Pacioretty, then you have Suzuki. I mean, we're talking about tearing it up here.
Then you're in a much better place. I think if you kind of take each piece individually, and we have some Monday morning quarterback that we can play on what exactly is Suzuki and Brandstrom and what that's going to be. But getting Mark Stone, like if you would have told me after the expansion draft that in 3 years, 4 years, whatever it's been now, 5, they're going to end up with one of them's not going to be good, and that's the one that they hung on to, I'd be like, okay, well, I figure one of them's not going to be very good. I'm hoping the other two are good.
That was kind of the point.
That ends up being the case. And then you're getting Max Pacioretty and Mark Stone out of it. I'm not going to be mad at that. Yeah, how much else did I have to give? Well, you had to give an Oscar Lindbergh, a couple of second-round picks, and that's basically it. Okay, and you end up with Nolan Patrick, who might be better. I doubt it, but he might. I don't think it's horrible. I'm not going to call it a success because none of them are good here, and that is a problem. Because when you have a player, when you have 3 draft picks like those 3, if they're all good and if you hit on all of them and that becomes the core of your team, for about 4 years of actual playing time, you're paying those guys substantially less than what they're actually deserving of on the ice against the cap. Nick Suzuki's a great example. That dude was paid a little less than $1 million this year. He was much better in regards to value than Mark Stone was or than Max Pacioretty was in regards to value. Is he a better player? Probably not, but you have to have some of that. So once you move them and you get Mark Stone back and you get Max Pacioretty back, you're also paying for those players against the cap every single minute that they're performing the way that they're performing. That can hurt you. So in that respect, it's kind of somewhat of a failure. Maybe Nolan Patrick can save that. I doubt it, but I think he can be better than Glass.
Yeah, and if he's not, I mean, at this point, you weren't getting anything in the Glass anyway. So yeah, I was more on the failure side too, just because of what Suzuki became. Brandstrom and Glass haven't really panned out yet, but we still don't have a cup for what we traded with. So,
I mean, but like if you had all 3 of them and you did absolutely nothing, you're in a much better place today than you would be if you did nothing.
That's fair. Okay, fair enough.
But then again, like, does that make it a success? You had 3 picks in the top 15, and pick 5 is a generational talent. Pick 4 is a generational talent. Pick 3 is borderline a generational talent. And there's about 15 guys after the guys that you picked that none are generational talents, but are legitimate NHL players. And 2 of which of the 3 that you picked are not.
Yeah, and 1 and 2, like you said, 2 could still be the verdict out, and 1 is just kind of trembling his way through right now in New Jersey. So, well, Ken, that's all the time we have. I much appreciate it. Always a pleasure talking to you from the old podcast days. And, guys, just keep doing what you're doing over there. I, for one, as a Vegas fan, love everything that you guys are doing. And we had the Sin turn on one time, too, and he was great. So give him a shout to us as well. And we appreciate you coming aboard the AM Drive here.